An avowed Marxist, Machal was regarded as an enemy of Western interests in Africa. From his investiture as president in 1975, he had been fighting the Western-funded armed wing of his political enemies, Renamo. His death was believed to be the handiwork of the then apartheid government in South Africa, working with their Western allies. Captain Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso, 1987. Assassinated. Soldier, Pan-Africanist, and exemplary pragmatic leader. Young Sankara was the most popular military leader of his generation. Among his many revolutionary initiatives was a program aimed at decolonizing the mind of his people who, like most Africans, had lost almost all confidence in their own abilities to make a difference in their lives from agriculture to industry and administration. He understood the poverty of his people and showed that sensitivity in the modest way he lived. However, his uncompromising stance against French neocolonialism did not sit well with his country's colonial overlord. French President Mitterrand is on record warning him publicly to change course. Not happy with his ways, they took him out by using his trusted but ambitious friend, Tavio Amorim, Togo, 1992. Assassinated. A member of the Olympio school of thought, Amorim was seen by the French as a mortal enemy. He was believed to have been killed for openly embracing and espousing the real independence and Pan-African ideology of Olympio Nkrumah, Marcus Garvey, and Sheikh Anta Diop. Ibrahim Barre Mainasra, Niger, 1999, assassinated in a coup. In his last 2 years in office, Mainasra was getting closer to the Libyan leader, Colonel Gaddafi, a relationship his country's colonial overlord and the West generally disapproved of. Laurent Kabila, DRC 2001. Assassinated by proxies. Kabila's dalliance with communist China and notable anti-Western revolutionaries like Fidel Castro and Che Guevara, who spent a year with him in eastern DRC to help him fight the Western-propped kleptocrat. Mobutu, in the early 1960s, had marked him as an enemy of the West. Many believe the latter used Rwanda and Uganda as proxies to take Kabila out. Given his country's proven vast, valuable mineral deposits, it's an open secret that the West is determined to keep the DRC in its current unstable and weak state to maintain its death grip on her natural resources. Any nationalist Congolese leader who is seen as more friendly to enemies of the West is one that must be eliminated by any means necessary. The West's quest for a puppet leader in the DRC continues. Muammar Gaddafi, Libya, 2011. Assassinated by mobs backed by NATO forces. From WikiLeaks exposes, we now know that Gaddafi was killed for trying to unite Africa and return the continent to the gold standard, away from the manipulation of the World Bank and IMF. And, unlike most African leaders, Gaddafi did have an undeniable record of starting and completing mega projects, like his desert to breadbasket, Green Revolution, that changed the lives of millions of his people for the better. Having even a third of Africa with their resources under Gaddafi's control or great influence was something the West dreaded. Obama signed off on his death because he was threatening to wipe off his own people. It is instructive to note that when NATO went after Gaddafi led by French jets, their first targets included civilian and agricultural infrastructure, not just military. Libya has been ruined and remains unstable since Gaddafi's death. Idris Deby, Chad, 2021. Assassinated. Deby was a creation of the West. As a member of a clan that accounts for only 3% of the Chadian population, and with little education, he had very little prospects of ever leading his country through legitimate means. But based on the crucial role he played in the Western-supported proxy war between Chad and Libya in the 1980s, he was helped to overthrow Hussein Habre. He went on to brutalize his people and loot his country, changing constitutions and conducting sham elections for over 30 years. However, in the last 3 years of his life, he had become increasingly open about the secret of his long stay in power, and who urges him privately to stay in power anytime he tries to leave. His closeness to Nigeria and sincere efforts to end the Boko Haram menace Plus, his loose lips may not have gone down well with his Western overlords. Deby was suspected to have been conveniently taken out while leading troops in the front line, to make way for his more controllable 29-year-old son to start a new cycle of misgovernance in Chad, something currently playing out as competent candidates seen as unfriendly to France are being killed to assure young Deby stays in power. John P. Magufuli, Tanzania, 2021. Assassinated by heart attack. No African leader in the past 20 years has won the respect, support, and admiration of Africans worldwide like Magufuli did. He was smart, incorruptible, and resolute. He started and completed major infrastructural projects on time and as budgeted without taking expensive IMF loans. He renegotiated loans he had inherited from his predecessors, saving his country billions of dollars. He also took on Western multinationals that had for decades been ripping Tanzania off through lopsided contracts and tax evasion. He made a major British mining firm pay back $1.9 billion in taxes and royalties they had cheated the country. He eliminated wasteful spending, flew commercial when he needed to travel abroad, and fought corruption blindly with passion. In only 5 years, he moved his country from low income to middle income status. Because of these actions, his popularity soared on the continent, giving rise to a new terminology, Magufulification, as an analogy for purposeful leadership. But to the West, he was a grave threat who had to be eliminated somehow. Wrap up. While not exhaustive, these are most of the high-profile victims of the West's quiet war on Africa. None of these deaths are fictional. Though most of these crimes were committed with some native complicity, the instigators and sponsors are known. The fact that Western media dismisses the exposure of these consequential crimes as conspiracy theories or controversial allegations shows their racist mindset in which Africans are viewed as less than human or incapable of discerning the source of their troubles. While Africans may not like or trust the Chinese and Russians, they are very much aware of the pervasive and deleterious effects of Western intrusion in their lives going back 5 centuries, from slavery to colonialism, neocolonialism, vulture capitalism, and the sponsoring of endless wars to keep Africa in a state of permanent crises that would enable its continuous looting by Westerners. Africans should not allow China and Russia to do to them what the West did, but otherwise it makes sense that they're more wary of the West than the Easterners.